It was the dead of night when the moon suddenly went dark and a deep red bled across its face. A Wirang elder stared up, whispered something about the moon man's blood, and the whole camp fell silent. What if your people believed that this blood-red moon meant a loved one was dying, or that a ghost had stolen the very spirit of the moon? In this video, we're going to unravel those ancient yarns from across Australia, compare them with modern science, and show why these stories still matter. If you're keen to know the truth behind the dark side of the moon, give this vid a like, hit subscribe and share it with a mate, because the ending will change the way you look at the night sky forever. Eclipses have fascinated and frightened people for millennia. A lunar eclipse happens when the Earth slides between the sun and the moon, casting a shadow that can turn our satellite dark or even a deep coppery red. Yet, for many Aboriginal communities, the moon isn't just a lump of rock, but a living being with desires, responsibilities and moods. Across Australia, from the deserts of the Northern Territory to the islands of Torres Strait, the moon tells fishermen when to cast their nets, warns farmers when to plant yams, and marks sacred ceremonies. In some nations, the moon is seen as a powerful man linked to fertility, in others as a woman whose cycles mirror those of childbirth. It's no wonder, then, that when the moon's usual face disappears, people sit up and take notice. Over the next half hour, we'll travel through stories of blood, ghosts and battles, hear from elders and researchers, and drop in on the scientists who can tell us what's really going on. Stay with us. There's more to this story than meets the eye. In many regions, the moon was a man on a constant journey, chased by other celestial beings. During a total lunar eclipse, the moon turns reddish because Earth's shadow filters out blue light. But for some Aboriginal groups, that red wasn't just physics, it was blood. They believed the moon man had been injured or was visiting the graveyards of the dead and returning covered in blood. Elders would gather families, reminding them that this was not the time to laugh or make noise. In several communities, such as those reported by Dwayne Hamaker and Ray Norris, medicine men or elders took center stage. They chanted, played didgeridoo or performed ceremonial dances to protect their people and drive away the evil magic. It was their footy grand final, if you like. Everyone relied on them to keep the moon on side. One recorded story tells of a Gurindji elder who, upon seeing the moon darken, smeared ochre on his chest, raised his boomerang and called on his ancestors to stop the bleeding. He believed the moon man would listen because he had done the proper rituals all his life. The reddish glow faded, and the elder took credit, cementing his role as protector. Whether or not his chants altered the cosmos, the act gave his community comfort. But that comfort came with an edge. If the moon was bleeding, someone somewhere might be too. This fear sets up our next story. For Aboriginal groups in the Wellington district of Queensland, the Kurnai of Victoria, and the Beagle Bay people of Western Australia, a lunar eclipse was more than unsettling. It was an omen. They believed it meant a distant relative was sick, injured, or had died. Imagine being on walkabout and seeing the moon darken. You'd rush home, heart pounding, convinced something terrible had happened. The Ngarrindjeri people of South Australia went further. They thought powerful sorcerers caused eclipses by working evil magic. Instead of looking up with wonder, they looked around with suspicion. Who among them had angered the sorcerers? The air buzzed with anxiety. One account collected by an anthropologist tells of a Ngarrindjeri woman named Kurong, whose husband was away hunting. As the moon disappeared, she screamed his name and wept, certain he had been attacked. Elders tried to calm her, but also whispered prayers. When the man returned safe at dawn, the whole camp celebrated, both relieved and reminded of the eclipse's power over their emotions. Not all omens were equal. At Beagle Bay, an informant told a European visitor that if the moon was hungry for dead people during an eclipse, it might eat men, but it wasn't interested in women. Such details show humor and gender dynamics woven into cosmology. These stories of death and danger underscore how an eclipse could disrupt daily life. Yet in some communities, an eclipse wasn't just a threat, it was a tactical sign. Let's head north to the Torres Strait and hear about ghosts and war. In the western Torres Strait Islands, a lunar eclipse is called Merlpal Maripathanu. In the Malui Lilgal language, that means the ghost has taken the spirit of the moon. But this wasn't just poetic language, it was a call to arms. Artist and storyteller David Boson explains that during a lunar eclipse, headhunters would ready themselves for battle. They believed enemies might use the darkness to attack. Women gathered the children and fled into the bush to hide until the moon returned. Picture it. The usual glow over the islands disappears. An eerie darkness and red hue take its place. Men paint their faces, sharpen spears and whisper war songs. Children huddle under trees, listening to the ghostly stories that give meaning to their fear. This belief reflects the region's history of inter-island conflict and raiding. An eclipse was both a spiritual sign and a practical warning. If the moon's spirit could be stolen, what else could be? The story also reminds us that, for these islanders, the moon is alive. Losing its spirit meant losing balance. When the eclipse ended, warriors would either go to battle or return home, depending on how they interpreted the omen. For us today, this might seem dramatic, but imagine living in a time without weather forecasts or astronomy apps. The sky was your news feed, and when it flashed red, you acted. A common thread across many Aboriginal nations is the idea that certain people can influence cosmic events. During eclipses, elders, sorcerers, or medicine men often stood up to confront the darkness. As Hamaka notes, many communities believed elders had the power to control or avert eclipses. They would chant, blow smoke, play the didgeridoo, or perform dances to return the moon to normal. This wasn't just showmanship, it reinforced their authority and unified the group. Think of it like this. When a footy team enters the field, fans perform rituals, wearing lucky socks or singing an anthem, believing it helps the team win. In the same way, an eclipse brought the community together around their cultural leaders. One story from Central Australia tells of an elder who, during a near-total eclipse, told the people not to look up until he said so. He recited ancient verses, then theatrically pointed his spear at the moon. As Earth's shadow moved away, people erupted in cheers and showered him with gifts. Did he know the science? Possibly not. But he knew when the shadow would pass based on careful observation. These rituals also provided psychological protection. Believing someone could control the eclipse turned chaos into order. It's a testament to the adaptive power of culture and shows how indigenous knowledge systems blend observation, ritual, and social cohesion. Next, we'll widen the lens to look at how the moon's daily behavior, not just during eclipses, influences life across Australia. Beyond the occasional drama of an eclipse, the moon governs tides, seasons, and fertility. The Yolngu people of East Arnhem Land, for example, teach that the moon fills up and empties as it passes the horizon. Tides are highest when it is full or new and setting or rising. Conversely, tides are low when the moon is high in the sky. They use this knowledge to decide when to fish or gather shellfish. In Nuenon traditions from Bruny Island, Tasmania, the sun is a man called Puniwin, and the moon is his wife Venna. They traveled together around the world until Puniwin went too fast, leaving Venna behind on icebergs. He produced more and more light to encourage her to catch up, and as she lagged, Tasmania separated from the mainland. This story embeds a memory of rising seas at the end of the last ice age and explains why the sun's light is reflected sunlight. In many other communities, the moon's monthly cycle is linked to fertility. Some elders warn young women not to look at the full moon lest they fall pregnant. Others suggest the opposite, that a full moon is a blessing for those trying to conceive. A young Yorta woman once described how her aunties would wink and say, "Don't let the moon see you tonight." Even outside of eclipses, the moon influences social behavior. By sharing these broader lunar traditions, we see that eclipses aren't isolated events but part of a holistic worldview. When the moon darkened, it disrupted not just the sky but the entire rhythm of life. And this brings us to a fascinating question. Why do such similar eclipse stories appear in cultures as far apart as Australia and Africa? One of the most intriguing aspects of eclipse lore is its universality. Across the world, from Aboriginal Australia to ancient China and the Inca, people have viewed eclipses with awe and fear. Hammaker notes that these common threads may reflect something about the human psyche rather than a single ancient story. After all, a disappearing sun or blood-red moon is a powerful sight, regardless of where you live. At the same time, researchers caution that many stories recorded by anthropologists may be filtered through colonial perspectives. It's important to respect that these narratives belong to the communities who tell them and serve specific purposes within those cultures. So, where does science fit in? Astronomers explain that a lunar eclipse occurs when Earth's shadow blocks sunlight from reaching the moon. The copper hue comes from sunlight refracted through Earth's atmosphere, which scatters blue light and allows red wavelengths to reach the lunar surface. It's the same reason sunsets are red. Indigenous Australians didn't need telescopes to notice patterns. By watching the sky over generations, they learned when eclipses would occur, how they related to the moon's phases, and what they meant for tides and seasons. Some even recognized that the moon and sun are responsible for eclipses. Bringing together myth and science doesn't diminish either. It enriches our understanding. Myths capture the emotional, moral, and social dimensions of eclipses, while science explains the mechanics. Both are part of the human story of looking up and asking, what does it mean? As our tale draws to a close, think back to that opening scene. The blood-red moon, the elder whispering of omens and spirits. We've heard how eclipses can signal danger to the Wellington people, call warriors to arms in the Torres Strait, or showcase the moon man's blood. We've seen how elders use chants to control eclipses, and how broader lunar lore guides fishing and fertility. We've discovered that these stories come from keen observation and serve to reinforce law, and community bonds. Even if we now understand the physics, many of us still feel a shiver when the moon turns red. That tingling might just be an echo of our ancestors' voices, reminding us that we're part of a much longer story. The dark side of the moon isn't just a shadow. It's a mirror reflecting our deepest fears, hopes, and connections to the cosmos. And here in Australia, those connections are some of the oldest on Earth. Let's honor them by listening, learning, and looking up with new eyes. If this journey through myths and science lit a spark in you, smash that like button. It really helps more legends discover these yarns. Subscribe for more stories that blend our ancient heritage with the wonders of the universe. Share this video with a mate who loves stargazing or history, and drop a comment below. Have you ever watched a lunar eclipse? Did you know these stories? Let's yarn about it. Cheers for sticking around till the end. And next time you see the moon fade, remember, you're part of a story that's been told for tens of thousands of years.